Hello, Mr. Zulfer. Welcome you.
Hi.
Okay, just 5 more minutes and we will be starting the webinar.
No problem.
Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to the second episode of SCCI webinar in collaboration with ICTA Sri Lanka and in partnership with Plan 9, Pakistan. I'm Fatima Anwar, Associate Director Communications from SAC Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And to give you a quick overview, the SCCI is an apex business organization under the SAC Secretariat and representing the business community across 8 countries. Our mission is to foster regional economic integration. And a quick background. In 2019, we organized a series of boot camps focusing on strengthening the startup ecosystem. Can you hold? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Fatima.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
So, in 2019, we organized a series of boot camps focusing on strengthening startup ecosystems in South Asia, successfully holding them in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, and Nepal, with participation from Bhutan and Pakistan as well. During COVID, we transitioned from physical boot camps to the online webinars. And in 2024, we again resumed, and our focus was on emphasizing on the successful startup stories. And we are truly honored to have Mr. Zulfer, who is the founder of PickMe from Sri Lanka, as a key speaker. And he is our guest speaker. And we are privileged to have Mr. Amzad Hussain, who is the chairperson of SAARC Young Entrepreneur Forum and the chairman of Gibson Securities Limited from Bangladesh. He is the moderator for today's session. Before we proceed, I would like to request all the participants to kindly share your questions in the Zoom chat, and these will be addressed during the last 15 minutes. We are also streaming live on Facebook, SAARC's SCCI Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. I will share the link in the chat box as well. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Amzad.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Zulfer, and welcome all the participants of today's webinar.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Zulfer, you have started your career as a corporate individual, as the CTO of Wow.lk, but you transformed your career and now you have become an entrepreneur. So can you please tell us what was the story of your shift of your journey and becoming an entrepreneur?
Right. So I think, yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank SAARC for inviting me. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here at this webinar. Yeah, so to answer your question, I think this, I think my career started with entrepreneurship. So I think I started my entrepreneurship journey before even I finished school. So I have a history of entrepreneurship experience. So my only corporate experience was when I took a stint at Microsoft for a short while. But then I went on to start another startup with my friends, and that's probably why you saw me as the CTO in my profile. But I've been in entrepreneurship, 95% of my time as an entrepreneur.
That's very interesting. Yeah, since your school days, yeah, you were into entrepreneurship, and I guess that motivated you to make your career as an entrepreneur.
So I think what really comes out of that is the experience, right? I think that's the most important thing. I'm sure because we should know, obviously, we're all South Asian in our culture, and we have essentially attributes that are very common to all of us, right? I think all our parents tell us, we should be a doctor or an accountant or whatnot, right? So I grew up in that environment, but I was obviously stubborn enough to say that I'll pave my own way. And I think the key there was the experience, right? Being able to start early in life and say, and getting that experience in so that you are able to what can I say? To play in the big league, right? If I may put it that way, right? So starting early in entrepreneurship is very important in my view, right? Because people will say, why don't you first do a job and think about entrepreneurship? Because the minute you get into a monthly pay, you get into that cycle of, expecting your monthly pay every month. Because when you are an entrepreneur, there isn't a thing called monthly pay, right? You don't have a salary to work on, right? You have to work on, you have to work on wealth creation. You have to work on profitability and stuff like that. So the thinking has to start early so that you are able to, handle yourself when you have a bigger opportunity in front of you.
Okay, coming to another point, like the gap analysis. So you have identified that in transport sector in Sri Lanka, there is a gap and there is a requirement for innovation. So how did you do the gap analysis and how successful you have become to identifying the fact?
So, so I think we all knew, I think we all know that ride hailing sort of picked up at the same time around the world. So I think we all have gone through hailing a taxi, how in this part of the world, how difficult it is, right, to get a taxi whenever you need one, haggling for the price, making sure that you don't piss off the driver, right? Generally, the power was within the drivers and not with the customers. So I think as ride hailing were taking off, I recognize that as a key problem, and that's essentially why why we launched PickMe in Sri Lanka. At that time, we were the first to sort of start ride hailing for a three-wheeler, right? I don't think even India started by then. But I think we started by saying let's sort of digitize three-wheelers first before we go into anything else, because three-wheelers was very close to us, at least in this part in this country, because everyone commuted on a three-wheeler, and we wanted to sort of disrupt or digitize hailing of a three-wheeler at the beginning of our company.
Yes, three-wheeler is quite popular in this part of the country, world in Asia, and so that's how you have become successful. So that's a good strategy. Can you give us a little insight about PickMe, like the statistics? How many registered clients do you have? How many rides per year you shared, and some of the economic?
Sure. So today we are, we have over 10 million users registered with us. We are in fact the second largest mobility platform in the country. When I say mobility platform, I'm talking about when it comes to even public transport, right? After buses, we will be number 2. So we move a lot of people, as you can see. So we've essentially become a very important mobility mode of mobility in Sri Lanka. And we have over 200,000 vehicles registered with us.
10 million is a very big number, almost close to half of the population of Sri Lanka. So that's a huge success, we assume.
Thank you.
Another point is, can you please tell us about the economic factors and also the success of economic success, how you have overcome those points during your journey?
So I think when you say economic, what are you referring to? Are you looking at profitability?
Like the financial viability.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think we knew that the model can work, right? So we just had to get to scale very fast, right? The model won't work without scale, so we had to get to scale very fast. So it was very important that we invest into that business so that we get scale, ASAP. But we actually knew that the unit economics is there, and we just have to get many users onto the platform. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, correct. We see that many startups after a certain stage, they become unable to grow due to internal reason. And when we face external problems, that's even severe. So during COVID-19, that was a crisis for everyone. So how did you handle that challenge?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So remember, Sri Lanka has been, COVID is one of the problems we face in Sri Lanka, but we had many other problems, right? We were the country, we obviously after COVID, we went bankrupt, right, as a country. Just before COVID, a year before, we had what we call an Easter attack, right? There were about 5 bombs that took off in 5-star hotels. So we as a country have gone through many ups and downs. So we have to be well planned to handle that. So I think what we did was, as a company, sort of ensure that we don't work with hope, right? Hope of something will work well for us, but we worked with a sort of a model where we look at how bad can this become, right? And then planned our way through, right? So obviously during COVID, I think when COVID hit, none of us knew how long this will prevail. Right? I think we all weren't sure how the world would look after COVID. So I think we essentially planned for the worst, right? And essentially said, do we have the capital so that we have a runway for at least 12 months, right? Maybe 12 to 24 months, right? Do we have enough? What do we do to cut down our costs, right? I think one of the things we did was we got rid of our real estate as fast as we could so that we can save money on that. So we made up many plans so that we are able to handle if COVID was to continue for another year or two, right? So that for us was a key factor. We didn't hope for better things, right? We were not biased in thinking that, hey, you know what, COVID will go away in 3 months or so. So we actually planned ourselves so that we are able to handle the bad news early.
Yeah. So we faced that was one challenge. And after that, also you mentioned that political crisis and then economic crisis. So during that economic crisis, the inflation rose up as well as fuel costs went up. So did you face any further challenge like cutting down employment or any other thing you had to adjust during that time?
So economic crisis wasn't that bad as COVID, if I may put it that way, right? Of course, inflation was a problem. We didn't have fuel in the country, so we had to manage our way through. So it was more of, we knew that people had to move around, and that's a good thing about our business, right? If when there's economic activities, we have business. So we have to make sure that we are aligned to that, and we had to make sure that we open opportunities around that area. During the economic crisis, we ran a petrol shed in Sri Lanka, right? So that we can refuel our own vehicles as soon as possible, right? So these are things that we plugged into our platform so that we are able to get our vehicles running, right? Because if the vehicles run, we make money. So that's what we did. That's one example of what we did. We did many other activities during the economic crisis, right? Remember, inflation went up. We had to adjust our prices very fast and make sure that both our drivers and our passengers were able to depend on the platform.
That was a very timely decision you took during back then. Another point, can you please tell us about the technology you use and the technology use of the technology and the support system? A little bit about.
So I don't think, is it during this time or are you referring to that same time, or are you referring to
No.
technology in general?
Overall, in general.
Sure. So I think our technologies obviously keep evolving. We've gone a long way from using a MySQL database to data lakes now, and we are evolving. There's many things as I speak taking place. We want to stay ahead of the curve. We want to make sure that we invest on R&D. There is a lot of AI work that we do today, right? We have we have an AI lab now. We're working on the future in terms of what more we can do with AI. So there is many things that is happening in a company like ours. It's essentially important that we keep investing on this so that we are able to. We don't want another company coming to disrupt us. So we have to stay ahead of our game.
Also, at the same time, you collect plenty of data and analyze those data. So how would you ensure the ethical use of those data, and how would you ensure that those information are properly protected?
So